data warehouses appeared in the late 1990s and beginning of 2000, I would say. And we still have them now. What I'm saying is that when they appear, they were there to resolve a specific problem. Okay, how can I access data from multiple business processes in my company? Let's say I have sales. Share my screen. Share my screen. Okay. Hopefully nothing will pop up on my screen that I don't want to share though. I think the lapel is not working.
It is not working. So someone is coming over to help. But
Okay.
if you
Can I continue?
it, yeah, yes, please do.
Okay.
Please do.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you. All right. So let me go back in the presenting mode here. So they were there to resolve specific problem. Like I did a marketing campaign. How did it affect my sales? Or how can I compare the sales from today versus the same sales last year at the same day? Okay. You might think it's trivial to do it these days because our system are fast and stuff like this. But in 1990s and 2000, it was not easy. Because when you were querying the operational servers, where you have your sales data, your marketing data, they were not that fast, right? And people were using them to enter data. So we needed to copy the data somewhere. So that's where came the idea of a data warehouse. To be able to have the sales data, maybe my operational server will only keep 1 year of data, right? So I need more because I need to look at the trends. So I need to copy this data over. Okay. Hello? Perfect. Okay. All right. Okay. Let's get back. So I need to copy the data over to a new server, right? Most of the time, at the time it was the databases here, right? So, and we were able to copy like structure, semi-structure. It was not flexible in terms of the data because it's a database. Okay, so it was well organized and very performant because it was meant to be used by the end users. The data lakes appeared in 2010, right? In 2010s, we have something called smartphones at the time, right? They appeared a bit before, but smartphones were used more and more. We're also using more media. We wanted to access stuff from Facebook, Twitter, and whatnot, right? The social media. Throwing that in the database, geez, I tried, right? It's not that easy, right? How many times people ask me, okay, I have a PDF file. Okay, so how can I store it into my database? How can I extract data from that PDF file to store it into my database? In 2010, we had SSIS at the time, right, with C# and stuff like this, but we didn't have a lot of power at the time for that. We needed something more powerful, but sometimes we just want to store the file as it is. We could use a database, store it into an envar by Nerimax at the time. That would be possible. But it's simpler to just store the file, right, somewhere. So this is where we have data lakes. Data lakes, we can have any data type, any structure. I have a contract. I want to store this contract somewhere and extract some data later. I can put into, it's easier to store it into a data lake. So, but it's not serial or organized, right? So if I put the file there, you will often hear schema on read, schema on write, okay? And it depends where you want to fill your pain, right? You want to define your schema on write, that's perfect. You're going to fill the pain to transform this data, right? Schema on read, you simply shoveling over later to do something later. So I thought about it a bit. So in the data warehouse, so data is well organized, clean, validated, as opposed as here as a data lake. We'll see on the next slide. But it requires a great deal of effort, right, to store it. A lot of ETL. Ease of consumption is simplified because we have a simplified adapted data model to what we want to do. Basically, someone can connect to a cube or to a Power BI dataset using Excel and is able to drag to use a Power Pivot there and get the data they want. Okay, so this is very easy to do. Query returns in sub-seconds, right? It's very fast here. So, and I talk about the thing here for the schema on right. But we have many performance optimization possibilities because it's a database. So we have indexes, partitioning. If you're using Synapse SQL pool, you have the distribution, like the hash, so all kinds of stuff of things that we can do here to help us with the performance. And then you can store a limited amount of data because on-prem, we meant it, this is cheap, but the more data we have into a database, I know now we are talking about SQL Server 22. They can store, they can have a lot of data, but still it's not the best place to archive data. Just think about the data. Let's say you have a CSV file, how it would be read in 50 years from now, okay? So if you store it into a database, or even the new kid on the block, which is the Parquet file, the Delta Lake, they still require a way. It's not like I can open a CSV file from the 1950s. I'm sure if I can find any, I can open it with Notepad. I'm sure a Parquet file. Try to open a Parquet file on your PC. It's not that easy. You need to have a special program for it. So it's not the best place to archive data. So as I mentioned, data lake, file-based storage, can store anything. It's a file, right? It's file-based. Disk is pretty cheap there, so we can store large volumes here. It's the right place to archive, the right place to archive. And it's easier to load. It's easier for, if you want to do real time in the database, it's quite complicated because we need to make sure that the database still answer the load, right? Is able to ingest the data. Here with the file base, it's simply we upload files and that's about it. So it's very easy. Queries, but the challenge is that queries written in seconds, right? So, and if we have a big query on a lot of data here, that written in, let's say 10, 15 seconds would be normal here because it's files. So performance tuning is achieved via partitioning, so we don't have indexes. Although with Fabrics, we have V order, or Databricks, we have Z order, which is a kind of index, but still, we don't have all the grips that we used to love with databases here. Consistency, you need to have a good data model there. Because at some point, consistency may vary because you cannot control, like a database, you have referential integrity. You make sure that the client refer on this invoice. I have it, right? At some point here, consistency will vary because I don't have those tools here. So data lakehouse combine the best of both worlds. Basically, you have a data lake. The storage is almost unlimited, depending on your budget, of course. And you also have the data warehouse, especially with Fabric. You have both. You have the data lake and the data warehouse. I'm going to. I have a slide that compare when to use both. When to use a lakehouse, when to use a warehouse here. And and basically, it's easy to get started. You build your lake first, your lakehouse, as I'm going to show you. You build cleaner table for specific. So you're going to clean your data a bit, adapt it, and then after that, you can later integrate them into a warehouse. So this is a very step-by-step way of doing stuff. So now let's talk about our topic, right? Why we're here. Fabric. So you will see this image at many places, right? So this is the way it works. So we need to talk about shortcut later here, but you can have structured or unstructured data. You use pipeline and data flows or notebooks to transform the data here. Then you have your lakehouse. Your lakehouse can be consumed via two ways. Power BI with direct link, which is a new kind of way to connect to the lakehouse, and using SQL endpoint. The SQL endpoint is like, this is where the difference between a warehouse and a lakehouse and a warehouse is it's quite thin here because SQL on a lakehouse, right? We have it in Synapse at some point. So it's like the serverless pool that we have, the SQL endpoint on our Lakehouse, kind of. Because the serverless pool was costing something like $5 per terabyte US. This costs much more because it's Power BI Premium, it's Fabric. But it does much more too. So the architecture. So we're talking about the Vinalian architecture here. So we have a resource data. I said before in the previous slide, we just ingest data in the bronze. This is the raw data. What we try to do here, when you go to the silver, you want to do system validation. What do we do with nulls? If I have many type of files for many departments for my sales, can I group them into one folder, one table, one file, right? So because I want to query, I want to make this layer as queryable as possible, easy to query. So I don't need to parse many folders. I will group them. And then for that you have the goal, which is your warehouse enriched. So now here you're going to do your system validation. Here you're going to do your business transformation. So I have something like from here to here for gender, I have MFUX, okay? So and null. So I shouldn't have for person, the gender that is null, right? It should be something else. So this is where I'm going to assess the data quality. And as soon as I trap it, I'm going to go back to the source system and tell them, guys, what do we do with it? Can you fix it, right? If you cannot fix it, it's going to come between here and here. So what will happen? We'll ask the business, guys, what do you want to do with the null or the X or the U genders, right? How do you want to see them? So they're going to tell you, okay, M is easy, right? F is easy. UX, maybe we have special cases that use them or simply filter them out. And then, but the data science guy will tell you, no, I want to see them, right? So, but we try to bring them, maybe we'll bring them with a special flag or something like that, that we're going to filter on Power BI reports. But you would like to do the data science as much as possible on top of the goal. Any data scientists here? Do you like it? Going to the goal? I think you would prefer to go here, right? I know. I know. So what we do, and don't tell it to anyone, please, okay? It's a secret. What we do, we declare to the data scientist, guys, we give you access to the bronze, okay? What we call it a managed bronze, which is basically this. But we don't tell you. No. What will happen is that we don't want to give you access to it because it might lead to contention, right? It might lead that someone, I'm going to ingest to load the data here. So I would prefer to give you access to something like here, right? So it's going to be the managed bronze. And then once I'm ready with my goal here, and I know that now I know what you are using, I'm going to tell you, you know what? The manager will be a mix of gold and silver, but mostly gold here. It's just a way to make sure that we don't have any data silos. I went to a place that data scientists were using the bronze, and even before that, and they end up doing the same transformation that we were doing to get to the gold. So at the end of the day, something is wrong. The data scientist would say my model is good, right? Now, you, the data warehouse guy, check what happened. And it's maybe a Python transformation that they did when they brought the data from the source here. So that's why we say managed bronze. As an architect, I would say that we're using a managed bronze here just to make sure that we have consistency. One lake. What is one lake? The first time I saw it 6 or 7 months ago, I said, what the hell, right? Because we have Synapse and we have storage accounts. So one lake, basically, it's like, they compare it to for like your OneDrive or your G Drive, okay? We put videos, we put photos there, we put text, we put documents, we put a lot of things. But think about one lake is like your Google Drive, your OneDrive for data access, right? For data manipulation. It's like a big Synapse on steroids, okay? So you have multiple workspaces because now we're in the Power BI Word, we have workspaces, but those workspaces, they can speak one to each other now, which was different because it was tough to do it with the Synapse workspaces. And then after that, on top of that, you will have your warehouse, your lakehouse, your finance, customer, telemetry, business here. And all those guys here can query the data here if they have a granted that they have access to, right? With security. So this is how it works. So one lake basically is the central place to do everything you want. So you can integrate data using Fabric, Spark SQL, Dataset, Power BI, and Semantic Link. So semantic link would be, whoop. I think we have some. Hello? No. Okay. Yes?
Can I ask a question, please?
Sure.
Can you please elaborate on the workspaces? Why do you need to have two of them? Is it the same warehouse on both of them, or is it different?
It's hello. Okay. Now it's working. Okay. So the workspaces, okay, like you would like with the Synapse before, okay, we have a workspace for HR, workspace for finance, right? Something like that. It's the same thing here. Yeah, let's see, workspace A is HR. This one is finance. Does it answer your question? Why do we have different workspaces and different lakehouse and warehouse inside it?
Yeah.
Because you would like to have a central warehouse and lakehouse for everything, right? You could do it, okay? But this gives you a possibility that you have multiple workspaces. So because not the same crowd will access these workspaces, right? So you want to segregate that by crowd, right? HR don't want you want to see the same. Yes, you can have row level security, column level security for that, but it's easier sometimes just to say, let's put the sensitive data, talking about salary. And if you're talking about healthcare, I might talk about your personal, your PII, personal information. So we want to store it into different places. Okay?
Thank you.
But it's a matter of design. So that thing is flaky. So all right. So here we can use Databricks can store data into in one lake. HD inside. Anyone use HD inside here? Okay, that's what I thought. It's quite old. And Fabric, of course, and Synapse, because Synapse will connect to one lake directly using the path of your one lake. So one lake can be, so you can create data in Databricks, right? Do transformation and push it to your one lake if you want to. But most of the time, you're going to connect from one lake to Databricks here using shortcuts. Shortcut, basically what they do, they connect to your storage account where your Databricks data that you have modified is stored, but they will not copy data. They will simply say it's a shortcut, right? I can access them from Lakehouse. We only see the metadata, the table definition, the fields. Okay. This is for performance. I would say we should not use shortcuts. They are there for integration when you want to ingest data. You want to ingest data, you don't want to copy the data over. So because the problem that we have right now is that we copy data from we have multiple copies of the data now, right? That's just crazy. So that's why shortcuts help on that one, because I can have a shortcut here. They show to a warehouse, to a lakehouse, but you might have shortcut to something else, right? To a data lake store, to S3 if you want to. You have to be careful of one thing though. If you have a shortcut to S3, you might, or if you have a shortcut to an Azure region that is different than yours, you might have to pay some egress network here. So, and performance too is not the same because it's files, right? You don't control, and you don't control what will be in those files. So, and what the structure will be. So your pipeline might fail. Right. So now we have the concept of managed table. A managed table basically is a table that we create in the Delta Lake, in our Lakehouse. Okay. So it's like create table.
And then settings and
I'm hearing something. That's good. Anyway, optimized. They are optimized by Microsoft Fabric. I'm going to talk about that later. Here. And data and metadata are deleted when we drop a table. So basically, managed table is like a regular table that we have into a database, but it's in the Lakehouse. It's like I would say it's like Synapse, the dedicated pool, right? So the data were in Synapse in those databases. The data metadata. So if we drop the table, we drop everything, we lose everything here. This is the best table to use for data consumption because they are very performant.
but it's down here. So we'll try to see what
Delta, the Delta
but
Lake.
at least one must.
Yeah.
double check
So
and
it's
do
an
it,
open
sure.
storage
Now
layer.
see, that's
It was
just
created by
sure.
Databricks. It was GA in 2019. Basically, so what it gives us, sorry, what it gives us here, it's like it's asynchronous transaction, but it's tricky on one table, right? Because the Delta Lake doesn't support multi-table transaction like begin trends, insert, update, delete, and commit trends, right? The warehouse will do it, but not the Lakehouse here. So it's very scalable, and we have a way to optimize them using V-orders. So I have a slide about V-orders. So I'm going to talk to it later. So, and streaming batch and streaming and batch, it can support both of them. Okay, basically, if you have real-time data that comes into your warehouse, IoT data that come into your lake, you can store it into those Delta Lake tables here because it can handle the load. Here, very important. Schema enforcement. Now there is the pain now, right? Now we need to enforce a schema. Okay, so it will automatically do. So if you drop a column, if you insert a new column, it will do it. It will accept it, but you need to have a special comment for that, right? To say merge schema, something like that. But you don't want to do it in prod because if you receive a file that has less column, you don't want to drop an existing column into your table. Otherwise, you lose information. Time traveling. So every time we insert something, we have a copy of it. We have to be careful about that because it's useful. And if you talk with Microsoft or Databricks, they would say, accumulate as much as you want, as much data as you want, as much snapshots of your data. Time traveling means that if I insert a row today and I update the row tomorrow, I will be able to go back like when I insert this table. So I will be able to go back to the first version of this row. So let's say I have a row called with the first name C Cote, right? And then tomorrow I say, no, the first name is Christian. So I do a merge statement. I will be able to say what was the first value for the first name, C. So I'm able to do it. Okay, I'm losing my name, guys. Okay, so I can do it. The problem is, as we accumulate snapshots, we accumulate data, okay? And if you need to clean up this data one day, it's not true that you can accumulate 10 years of data like that. If you run every day, the problem is that you're going to have after you go, whoa, gee. Sorry. So you're going to have a lot of versions, right? 3,000 after 10 years, which might lead to performance issues. So there is a way with Delta Lake to see a vacuum to clean up your data there, your versions. Unmanaged tables, Synapse serverless pool, external tables, basically. So store data externally. This is what we prefer to do with the Databricks too, because we don't want to have the data stored into the Hive metastore of the cluster. So, and the data, I'm sorry, you don't want to have the data stored into the cluster. You use create table using So you're going to use specific location, right? Create table for manage will create a table with its storage associated with it. This one will say, I'm going to create a table, but where is the data? So this is what we. So only the metadata is deleted. So if I drop the table, I simply drop the table representation in my Lakehouse. The data is still there. So it's mainly used for data integration, basically, because I don't want to copy the data over to my Lakehouse. Delta performance V order. This is Databricks has something called Z orders, Z orders. So we have V orders with Fabrics here. It's a proprietary technology developed by Microsoft. So basically, the right time optimization to a Parquet file. Basically, they are going to compress the files, and they are going to do something like, you know, the column store that we had before, compression. They are going to apply it on top of the compression that we have on the Parquet file, basically. So you see, it applies sorting. It's going to regroup the distribution, the including compression here on the Parquet file. There are some caveats though, because sorting it will increase the write time by 15%. So no good for real time, right? Only good for batch here, but improve compression by 50%. Storage, and when talk about compression of your data by 50%, it means that performance, right? And you see here, 10 to 100 times performance than standard Parquet files. Yeah, compatible with Power BI, SQL, Spark here, and it's cost efficiency because at some point you're going to pay less compute with that. So the implementation of it, right? We have the Lakehouse, and we have the SQL endpoint. So the Lakehouse, we're going to explore files, folder. We can load to table. I'm going to show that to you later, and it's read-write. The SQL endpoint here, it's read only. We can have it's like Synapse server very school. So you're going to query your table using T-SQL. So it's SQL. It's PySpark, PySQL. Here it's SQL, and you have schema, you have store procedures here, but it's read only. But now, I think 3 weeks ago they announced you can have rollable security on this now. So you can say, I'm going to stick. Remember my slide where I was saying you start by ingesting the data, then you create clean tables, right? So you could live here with your clean tables. You don't need to have a warehouse all the time. So you can have a lakehouse here. Right? So role level security, basically what it is. J has access to his sales rep data here, and Eta has access to her data, or his or her data here in the table. So it means that it applies security. This is why it's very important that if you use Power BI, you use the direct cloud connectivity. Because if you import the data, you need to redo the same. You need to redo the same role level security in the Power BI. When you import, you lose it. These access rules are kept in the database, and since we're using A80, right, or Entra 80 now to connect to our Lakehouse, it's able for us to do the magic to segregate the data, just to show the data that we need. Demo, finally. I'll hold it now. Enough theory. Now let's go to practice. Yeah, perfect. Here. All right. There are two ways to use Fabric. But here, there are two types of Fabric. Pay as you go, and you have the reserve instance. Okay, reserve instance is like Power BI Premium. Power BI Premium, we could create a Power BI pay as you go here with Power BI simply by going to Azure and say I want to have Power BI embedded. It looks clumsy here, but this is what we were able to do. because we're not going to embed it. We're simply going to have a premium capacity for Power BI. Same for Fabric. Fabric, to do it, I'm going home here. I search for Fabric. It's in preview, of course. And then I created a capacity for Fabric here. Okay. And now I can pause it and I can start it. So in dev, it's very important because in development mode, I can say, you know what, my dev are not working from 9 p.m. till 6 a.m., right? So if you have young dev, they might work till 2 a.m. But dev at my age now, we work at 9 p.m. we're done. So you can pause it and stop it. You can schedule it. So you can also have different sizes here. You see from F2, and this is the cost if you run it 24/7 here. But if you pause it for 12 hours a day or nine hours a day, it will cost you much less, right? So, but you have the capacity here. Of course, if you run the big one here, right, 405 a month, that would be crazy. But it gives you, if you run it right, you might use it for a short while, but maybe not for a month. Me, I'm cheap. So I said, let's go for this one with this one for my demos here, the cheapest one. Here, so this is it.
Which in production, which of your clients, what kind of tier do they use? Like
Reserve instance, first thing first, in the production,
yeah,
they are going to use
Like
most of the time
yours.
reserve, and it will be F64, which is P1
Yeah, even
with
one of
Power
them,
BI
you
Premium.
can go ahead. I'll take care.
oh, and it's mandatory if you have
Oh,
Power BI.
yes.
If you have Power BI Premium, no, okay. If you have Power BI Premium, the reserve instance, okay, it's going to be
Even for
capacity of F64 for Fabric, okay? But the price that you see here, Microsoft, the licensing is not done yet. Usually you have a rebate because you have a reserve instance. So I don't know how many percent,
Yeah, I know.
but yeah, it depends on your licensing that you have with Microsoft, the license agreement you have with Microsoft. But it will not cost you $12,000 a month. This one is the pay as you go, right?
Yeah, and what is the estimate volume of data like for that client? 4 terabyte, 5 terabyte?
Thank you. Yeah, I would say it depends. This is mostly the compute here. You can have as much data as you want. You could use, yeah, terabyte.
Still
I
have
might
to pay
have.
for it, yeah.
You will pay. You know the compute is fixed here. Here, if I get my cluster running, okay, whether I use it or not, I'm paying for it. Okay, so I should use it.
Yeah, I know, but that volume, what's the volume that your current client has?
My current client has approximately, I have some clients that have something like they are not in petabytes, right? They have something like 8 or 9 terabytes. Yeah. Some people have less than that, right? They don't have terabyte, so it depends.
So if it's in the terabyte, is it fair that we would do a F8 test, like stress test?
Yeah. You can do it, but this is why this is useful, this Fabric here in Azure, because even in prod, you might say, I don't want to have the reserve instance because I'm not going to use it, right? If I have, not everyone has big data, right? So in prod, I might say, hey, why not paying this instead of paying $8,000 or $9,000 or $10,000, right? Per month, I can let it run for the whole for the 24/7, right? For the whole month. So this is how I'm doing it. Now, if I go to Synapse, guys. Yeah. Yeah.
So we have a Power BI capacity and we have prayer. Yeah. And there is a traffic. Power BI workload will go to Power BI capacity and the
It's going to be an add-on view of Power BI in the capacity.
I'm just asking you.
okay. So the one capacity is going to be
So you're
both
gonna take
have
Yeah.
Power BI.
say
Oh,
what,
yeah.
because I asked,
Okay. Okay, so I don't want to use Synapse, but now since I'm sharing my screen, I just wanted to close it. Okay, thank you. All right. So trying to do something here. Magni. Magnifier, perfect. All right, so let me go here, okay? So first thing first, I'm going to click on workspace setting here. So this guy here, if I scroll down, if I can scroll down,
We're
I'm
recording.
using the magnifier, so I cannot.
We have to like. in between
What minus here?
invite,
Okay, if I scroll down and I go to premium,
in your
you
calendar
see, use the magnifier for that one here.
for the next session.
I have the fabric capacity and trial one for me, but because I don't have Power BI, there is no reservation capacity now for fabric, but you see I'm using the fabric capacity. So within the fabric capacity, if I go to data engineer, data science here, Spark setting, loading, we're waiting. So you see, I'm limited because I use the cheapest one. One node, one worker, one driver, one worker here. So I can increase my BDM, meaning that I can use it with multiple notebooks, but I'm limited, which is fine. I mean, not everyone is doing big data, right? So sometimes just to in dev, you can have a few fabrics capacity that you create in Azure, and then you can assign it to a specific dev, and they are responsible to pause it, right? Most of the time they will forget, but they are responsible to pause it. But at least it doesn't cost too much money, right? So this is how we can do it. Now let's go to the Lakehouse. Okay, you see SQL endpoint and Lakehouse. I created the bronze Lakehouse. I showed you the medallion architecture before, bronze, silver, gold. Someone asked me a question about, I think it's you. Why do I don't have the Lakehouse for everything, right? Usually I should have had it. The problem we have is that Microsoft right now with Fabrics, they don't support folders here. Okay, so I'm kind of doomed. So for now, I need to create, if I want to use it, or I have a naming convention for my tables, or I'm going to use a Lakehouse for bronze, a Lakehouse for silver, and a Lakehouse for gold inside the same workspace. So it's a matter of design guild. So we are waiting for this to happen here. It tries to show me the address table here. Let me just magnify it a bit. You see the small triangle here means delta. Okay, it's delta table here. So what I did, where's my magnifier? Let me just remove it. So what I did basically, I uploaded files here, and I was able to. So those files here, which is nice now. If I go to Windows Explorer here, I will see my one lake somewhere. One lake. Okay, now you see all my workspaces here. So if I go here, I go to Bronze Lakehouse, tables and files. I can upload the file here now from my PC. Much easier than going to Synapse before and upload using Synapse. Now, this is an extension that you have to install on your machine now, which is very interesting. So now that I'm here, I upload files. I can do something. Load to table. Load to table, I can say existing table. What's nice about it is that I can say override the content of that table here or append. So I can do my own ETL when I'm doing tests, right? When I'm doing when I'm developing my pipelines. If usually we do it when we want to say I'm going to test in incremental load, right? So I'm going to bring other data and then test how it works. So this is how I would do it. I select a table here.
No, I'm saying
So
like,
for some reason, the preview doesn't want to work today.
He's working on it.
But let's go to the notebook.
And
I'm using a notebook. We can use pipelines, right? Pipelines with the copy activity, data flow, Gen 2 as they call it, which is Power Query data flow. I'm using notebook here, and then I can simply, let me just do something. I can open it in VS Code. So VS Code, I will have this notebook open, connected to my cluster, my Spark cluster in Fabric, which is nice. those who work with Databricks, how do they call it? Databricks Connect, I think, right? So you're able to install Python library, and you would be able to connect to your Databricks cluster. I don't know how they are now because I worked with that 3 years ago. But now with this one, that's easy. I simply open in VS Code. It's going to open for me. Open there for me, open VS Code for me. So I have my cells here. What I wanted to show you is simply, I just want to remove clear output. Thank you. All right. So I'm going to have a code here. And now, sorry for people on Teams. I'm going to simply drag it here. It wrote the code for me. Select star from bronze.lz landing zone customer, right? Limit 1000. This is SQL. I can run it. The first time it would take 3 minutes, right? When they say, Microsoft is saying, you don't have to wait for your cluster to be hydrated. It's true with the reserve instance mode. When you have your own capacity, the first time it needs to wake it up, right? So it will take a few minutes, but you can see that it's simply SQL here. So now I can also click on upload here. If I click on it now, I have a text file. So it's a text file basically that I use for my documents. Yeah.
That's okay.
Yes. Sorry. Sure.
No,
Thank you.
but thank
And
you
now,
about it, sir.
what it did, it simply went here. I know it's small, but it simply connected to the file, and then it created a data frame for me with the file, non-structured file, right? What I'm going to do with it after, that's might be, I can use Python library after that to extract. Thank you very much. Ah, good. There. So I can use Python library after that to extract some data from there. It might be a video file that I want to extract from points, right? Specific points in my video. Might be a picture. So I simply drag and drop, and now it creates the plot bin here for me. Then after that, here you see I have here shortcuts, landing zone. So basically, what I created, I say I can copy it here, but in the files, I can import data because I'm not at the right place. I'm in the notebook now, but I can connect to other things like I say S3, other workspaces. Using shortcuts here. So you see here on manage, it doesn't have a delta here, right? It's a table that was created. Let me check if it's working here. Load data, perfect. Yeah, here, not the one, but that's fine. Anyway, I could load it here and I could see the data. It would be slower at some point. Yep. If you put the same workspace, you would just specify run that by table. If you different workspaces, you need to use shortcuts. Yeah, since I have only five minutes left, guys, I'm just going to show you this here, but let's go back to the presentation. Here, I could speak for hours about that. Very interesting. Here. So, because I want to show you a few slides here. So, when are we going to use the connectivity, data flow, or Spark notebook, right? So basically, data volume, low to high, they can all do the same thing here. How many connectors do I have? If I want to use data flow, if I want to connect to something like QuickBooks, I will use the data flow. Connectivity will not do it. Spark, depending on what I brought into my my data lake, right? So destination here, so we have a lot, but the most important here is this one here. I highlighted a few things. Warehouse versus Lakehouse. The data mart and Cousteau lake here. We don't have schema in a Lakehouse. Very important. The reason for that is that the Delta Lake doesn't support schema. Okay. Nor we have folders, but this is something that my Microsoft is working on. So data by schema, we're using SQL. This guy we're using PySpark, Scala, PySpark, Spark SQL as you saw here. So transaction performance update for a few rows, good. This one, slow because it's only one table. It doesn't support multi-table transaction. The warehouse will do it here. So query across items, yes, you can do it with all of them, not the Power BI, the data mart. But this is a very important slide. That's why I highlighted a few differences, because usually go up to silver, we're going to use a Lakehouse. When we go to the gold, we're going to use warehouse in Fabrics. For good reason, because sometimes the development end up to a different team that will use SQL at some point, or pipelines, or something else. All right, so to sum up, Data Lakehouse combines the best of both lake and warehouse capabilities, of course. One lake, you think data for all purposes. So I didn't talk about Power BI much, but they will consume the data from one lake, basically. Many ways to bring data, and Spark clusters managed by Azure Fabric. No need to estimate the size beforehand. Take it with a grain of salt, okay? Because at some point Microsoft is working on that to say, you know what, if you need only 2 CPU capacity, that's fine. If you need a 50 CPU capacity, they are going to spin them for you. All right, any questions? Yep.
The Lakehouse for row silver, or can I pass the Lakehouse completely and just
Do you want to do the question here and I hear often, right? Do you want to do a Lakehouse or not? You have to, you can do a Lakehouse, you can use the warehouse, right? You just need to use Fabric to expose the data for you in the cloud. Basically, it's what you need. Use the warehouse on, don't need the Lakehouse. But once you're going to go, because for you, the data you have is gold. But for people that do standard, you are going to see bronze, silver, gold, right? On-prem was lending, staging, data mart, right? Something like that. So it's the same principle. If you don't need that, let's say you will do your lending, your staging on-prem, and then you copy the data, or it's done somewhere else. You can simply
because I need to do the 3 stages, but I still need to follow the Medallion architecture. But my data is mostly structured, and I don't have any intention to use Spark. Can I just do the Medallion architecture in warehouse only by passing the Lakehouse completely?
Sure, you can. Yes, you can. You will not have lakehouses, you will have warehouse and then multiple schemas to your warehouse, like we're doing before. Right?
So the Lakehouse is basically optional. It's not.
Yeah, like the warehouse is.
Because I have some different perspective from the.
Yeah. Any other question? Yes.
So what are your recommendations for geospatial data?
Geospatial data is basically the data, because it's not so purpose right now by the data. So that by the delta table. So you need to have the lakehouse, and you need to structure this data, right? It's like graph data at some point, right? You need to structure this data. It's like a text document. You need to structure it. And I think Power BI can consume this data directly, but I might be mistaken here. So we have the session Power BI, you might ask. But for you, I will start in bronze, basically. Try to do something in silver. In silver, we apply the structure, right, to do something in silver. And then maybe you'll get the gold for it. But you need to attach it to something else, right? So I have a store, right? The store A, B, C located at this longitude and latitude, right? So, and it occupies like as I said example before with the Power BI, they were using tennis courts, right? So, or soccer field. So you have the soccer field and you could see the position of the player at some point. So it is possible, but I don't have a lot of experience with the geolocalization. But I would say that usually I use it with maps. Yeah. But it was still the gold and silver maybe, but usually when you attach it to a structure, your warehouse. Any other question? All right. Enjoy your day, guys. Thank you very much. Thank you.